Good afternoon and welcome to this virtual college exploration series for all Illinois students, brought to you by the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling and StriveScan. My name is Joe Freeman. I'm the Director of College Counseling at Beacon Academy in Evanston and will facilitate this session. A few basic housekeeping items. First, to ask questions, please use that Q&A button to type your questions to the presenters at any time. Your camera and your microphone are off. You are muted, your video's off. Your panelists cannot see or hear you. Please do sign up for more sessions. This is one of many college presentations, and you can check out the schedule for a full schedule at www.iacac.org. And a recording will also be available. All sessions are being recorded and will be available for you at www.iacac.org. And given the specific content of this session, I will say that none of your names or any identifying information is ever displayed to anybody publicly, so you can feel confident that any questions you ask will be kept in confidence. So this session is on counseling the LGBTQ plus student, and I will turn it over to Scott Hillman from the University of Oklahoma.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. We're so happy to have so many people joining us today for our session. I believe Kate is going to start getting our PowerPoint presentation up so we can begin our session there. But again, welcome to Applying to College as an LGBT student. I am Scott Hillman. I am with the University of Oklahoma. But today I'm taking off a little bit of my Oklahoma hat. I'm going to give you some college admissions information as well as my wonderful counterparts, and I will let them introduce themselves as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Kate McKay. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an admissions counselor at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. Super excited to be here today as well.
Hi all, my name is Mackenzie Hugel and I use she, her pronouns, and I am from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Awesome. Well, as mentioned, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to put those in that question and answer box. None of your information is publicly displayed, so we want to make sure that we get you all of the answers and resources that you need to be successful in your college search. But kind of talking about that application process first, right, once we finish that college search, we're going to be moving through those college applications, and there's a couple things that we want you to be aware of when we're looking at the college application, things that will help make it easier for you, make it so that the counselors know who you are, how you identify, and some different things there. So when you're actually filling out that application, a few things that you may be seeing on that application are going to be asking for your preferred name, asking for your gender identity, and asking for your pronouns. Now, admissions offices typically are asking for this information just so that we can be inclusive in our admissions practices, in contacting you as a student, in talking about you or sending you emails, different communications. We want to make sure that we're using your correct pronouns, we're using your correct name, and that we're not misgendering you in any way. So when we're asking those questions, we're asking them just so that we can make our communications with you better. We do get the question a lot of, should I come out on the application? And we want you all to know that that is totally up to you. We have students that do come out and students that don't. But again, that's just about you and where you're at in your process of coming out, being comfortable with yourself and who you are. And so throughout the application process, whether that's in talking to your admissions counselor, in filling out your essays, or anything else on that application, don't feel like you need to come out. Just know that that is something that you can do if you'd like to. And we did have a question pop up in the chat saying that some applications are asking about sexual orientation, and wondering if that impacts your application in any way or if it's just for data purposes. And the answer to that is it is for data purposes. It is illegal pretty much all across the United States to discriminate against students based on their gender identity or sexual orientation, which we'll talk about a little bit on the next slide as well. So when institutions are asking for your sexual orientation or gender identity, a lot of that is so that they can continue to provide you with more resources that are going to be more specific to you as a student. Great question, though. As you're going through that application process and the entire college search in general, it's really important to use your resources on campus. So Mackenzie, Scott, and I are all examples of those resources as admissions counselors. Our job is literally to sit here and help you find the right college for you, whether it's our college or another institution. So if you ever have any questions about resources that are available, questions on the application and why we're asking for specific information, or looking for resources on campus or in the community, we're going to be really good resources for you there. Campus LGBTQ centers are also going to be awesome resources for you as a student, even before you get to a college or university. A lot of colleges that have a LGBTQ student center, a pride center, something kind of along the lines of that name, will have a ton of different resources for students on navigating college as an LGBTQ student. A lot of them will have professional staff members that you can reach out to and tons of different resources to help you navigate not only that college search process, but also learn more about what it's going to be like to be a student on that campus. The last resource I want to mention here in looking at through that application process is the university website. If you ever have questions on different things going on campus, the website is going to be a great resource for you as well. It'll list out all of the different things we have going on campus for our students. Now, in talking about inclusive policies, that's going to be something really important to keep in mind when you're looking at different colleges and universities. A lot of the ways in which students are discriminated against on college campuses has to do with policy. So in keeping these inclusive policies kind of top of mind in your search process, you're able to make sure that the colleges and universities that you're looking at have policies that are going to protect you as a queer student. The first of those is going to be non-discrimination policies or statements, which most universities will have pretty clearly labeled out on their website, saying this university will not discriminate against students because of X, Y, and Z. Making sure that those non-discrimination policies and statements include both sexual orientation and gender identity. If you're not able to find that on the website or somewhere kind of clearly laid out for you, that's where those admissions counselors and some of those other resources can come in handy for you to help you find that information. You'll also want to take a look, especially for our transgender nonconforming and other students, at gender neutral housing and bathroom options as well. Universities will have that information public on whether or not they have gender neutral housing options available, whether trans students are able to live in the housing area in which they identify, and if gender neutral bathrooms are available around campus as well. Preferred name policies then is going to be the third one that's listed out here, making sure that you can be called by your preferred name in your classes, in your residence halls, in any of your interactions on campus, just ensuring that you're able to be called what you identify as, what your name is. Now, one of the last things on here I want to mention is maybe taking a look at the hate and bias reporting on campus. Not necessarily looking at that as preparation for needing to use it, but as making sure that that is easily available. A lot of campuses will have different diversity offices and areas where you can report hate and bias incidents. And a lot of them on there will state that they do not have a tolerance for discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, anything involving LGBTQ students or any other identities as well. So making sure that campuses have those reporting forms available, making sure that they have top of mind that these students are going to need support on campus if these incidents arise. You can also take a look at campus annual safety reports as well. So all of our campuses, I went out and took a look, did a little digging on the internet, do put out annual safety reports, as do most campuses, that'll actually detail for you the number of different crimes that occur on campus. You can look specifically into crimes that occur because of, or not because of, but based on a student's sexual orientation or gender identity. So kind of looking at the safety of campus for you as a student as well. Now, the last piece I want to mention here in terms of inclusive policies actually extends beyond campus. Obviously, when we're looking at colleges, we're looking at not only the institution, but at moving to that area where that college or university is as well. So taking a look at the community, local, and state laws and policies as they pertain to discrimination against LGBTQ individuals, as well as community resources and supports. So a little bit more about what I mean by that is that certain states have different laws kind of based on non-discrimination policies and protections for LGBTQ individuals. This map kind of lays out what some of the different states look like in terms of just the state laws. So Mackenzie and I are both located in Wisconsin. We're blue up there in the kind of Midwest area. And we have a statewide non-discrimination law that only covers sexual orientation. So statewide, that's what's covered for us. Oklahoma is unfortunately a little gray, but so doesn't have any statewide protections. However, in doing a little bit more digging, all of the areas that our colleges are in have local protections for those students. So even though there aren't necessarily statewide laws in, as you can see, most of the states in the United States, those local areas, especially those college towns and areas where there are going to be more students, tend to have more local laws that are protecting students not only on sexual orientation, but also gender identity. So making sure that you're taking a look at that as well, just so that you can make sure that you're protected in that college town. Now, on a happier note, right, there's a lot of community resources and supports as well. So we'll go on to talk a little bit later about some of our campus supports, but there's a lot of supports available in the community as well. So coming from Illinois, Scott and I have actually worked pretty closely with the Center on Halsted. It's a really great LGBTQ community center in the city of Chicago. There's MKE LGBT up in Milwaukee. LGBT of Walworth County is an example, kind of near Whitewater. So know that you're not stuck to just the resources that are available on campus. There are a lot of community resources and supports available for you as well. So as you're kind of looking into some of those other things that aren't as fun to talk about right on the last couple of slides, know that there are a lot of great and awesome resources and things available for you as well.
Okay, so next I'm going to talk about college search and some helpful tools and resources that are out there to help you navigate the college search, especially as it might relate to finding colleges and universities and where they stand on inclusive policies, on resources. We talked about gender inclusive housing and things like that. And so where campuses and universities stand there. So one organization that is fantastic to know about is called Campus Pride. And so Campus Pride offers a ton of different resources. We have like a summer camp and something like that, like workshops and beyond. But two programs that they run specifically that I want to highlight today, one of which is the Campus Pride Index. So if you go to their website, which is www.campusprideindex.org, this allows you to search by state, by region. So you could search for the entire state of Wisconsin. You could search for the Midwest. You could do the South, search just by Oklahoma, and so forth. So it allows you to search by state, by region, and so on, to see how those colleges and universities, their institutional commitment to LGBTQ inclusive policies. So there might be policies, programs, and practice, and how Campus Pride Index organizes all of that is they have an index score of 5 stars. So you'll see that different colleges and universities will rank a certain star out of 5 stars. So I can tell you that the University of Oklahoma is a 4 out of 5 star institution. And so basically what that index score is based off of a wide variety of things. And that can include policy inclusion. So we already talked about some policies and inclusion statements, support and institutional commitment to this community, academic life, student life, housing, campus safety, counseling, and then recruitment and retention efforts. So those are the main categories, which sounds like a lot, but then they take it even further. So under student life, it talks about like student organizations, student programming. Under housing, it'll talk about inclusive housing. It'll talk about policies, what's available to students, training of staff members, training of house staff members. So the staff that works in the housing facilities, are they adequately trained on the LGBTQ student population and the issues they're facing, and so forth. So it really breaks it down so you can not only see those categories, but the sub-factors and how all of that adds up to give that school an index score. I can tell you that Oklahoma about a year ago was about a 3.5 out of 4, and where we have made some strides have been within our housing and within training staff members. So by getting those few extra steps, we were able to go from 3.5 to 4 stars. And that's just something to know that universities may have that ranking, but they might also be working on ways to improve their ranking. And that even goes for those 5-star schools. They would hopefully be working on ways to retain their 5 stars and strengthen it as well too. Campus Pride as an organization also hosts college fairs, typically in person in the past before our frenemy COVID-19 rolled around. And years ago, there was one hosted in Chicago. And so for those of you who are in the Chicago area, just know that that could be something that comes back up, especially if you're an underclassman in the future. I believe the closest one for Midwest students was scheduled to be in Indianapolis this year, but it was canceled. So I know Minneapolis has been another location. So for many maybe underclassmen on here, or if there are any counseling staff members on here, just know that Campus Pride College Fair might eventually make its way back to Chicago and have something Illinois based, but that is something that they do nationwide too. So they'll have other college fairs in other parts of the US. So Campus Pride is one big component, one big resource that you'd want to look into as it relates to your college search. And then another one is admissions offices. So we already kind of touched about this, about working with your admissions counselors and asking them questions as it relates to LGBTQ inclusivity on campus, friendliness, and any other questions that you may have. So if you know who your admissions counselor is, I'm the admissions counselor, for example, for all of Illinois for University of Oklahoma. So I would be the main contact for students here. But for other institutions, you would want to contact your admissions counselor. And if you don't know who that is, contact the admissions office. And they should be able to help you, guide you to the person who is going to work with you. And then you can kind of build their relationship and ask them those questions. So that's one way to kind of use admissions offices as a way in. And just know that there is one person that you can go to, your admissions counselor, to make it seem not as daunting to approach this admissions office at this university about the questions that you have. But we're here one-on-one to help you students get that information or connect you to other institutions too, and who your counselor may be there to help. Another good thing to know with admissions office is that some universities will host specific visit days for LGBTQ students and families and their loved ones to come and visit campus. So obviously universities and colleges have visit days going on all the time. Especially virtually now too, but know that some of them might also have special programming geared towards the LGBTQ community and students. And so it might be an easy way to do a visit program that's not only going to show you around campus and all things about the university, but specifically the things that are good to know as an LGBTQ student or applicant, I should say. If we want to go to the next slide, we do have a couple other resources as well as it relates to the college search. And that would be using what I called a diversity and inclusion office on campus. Now, this name of this office might range university to university and college to college, which can be a little frustrating. It might be a little confusing for you navigating the college search process. But there's going to be an office on campus that works with diversity and inclusion programs. So for at University of Oklahoma, for example, it's our Gender and Equality Center that houses our LGBTQ plus student programs and resources and things like that. So there's going to be an office on a university's campus that might have that same name or something similar. But they're going to be the offices that have programs and resources available for their students, for their faculty and staff members, for different trainings for those staff members or for fellow students and that. And so if navigating the college search and you want to get those questions answered about what life is like, contact those staff members. They're the ones that are working with the LGBTQ students on campus, with the staff members and faculty members on campus. And so contacting them would be another way to help you navigate the college search and get those questions as it might relate to the LGBTQ student search specifically. And then the last source here is through NACAC. This is the National Association for College Admissions Counseling. And the NACAC website that I linked there, that website actually takes you to a list of resources that NACAC publishes as it relates to the LGBTQ community and college access. So it might be things like navigating the college search, you looking maybe coming from high school into the university setting, might be resources for students currently in the university setting. So there might be scholarship opportunities listed on there. Human Rights Campaign is also referenced on there. The GLSEN organization, which works with education, is listed on there. And so that link there kind of takes you to a whole bunch of other resources and things like that that can help you navigate the college search.
All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about the ways and resources that colleges and universities have to support their career students. And just as a caveat, I want to put out that these look different from campus to campus, and they're going to have different names and acronyms. And so we're going to show you what those are going to look like between just the three of our campuses in a little bit, just to kind of give you an idea of how they could vary from campus to campus. But in general, these are some things that you're going to want to look for in terms of determining what supports different campuses have available. And going back to that Pride Index that Scott was talking about earlier, they're rated, these resources are rated on that index. And so it's a good way to kind of start by seeing which universities have certain supports that you might be looking for. But with that being said, the first one would be like an LGBTQ resource center, like Kate was mentioning earlier. This is kind of like your main touch point. A lot of times if there is a resource center on campus, they will have a hand in a lot of the other advocacy organization and other things kind of on campus that support queer students. So that's kind of like the first thing that you might want to look for. Outside of that, then we have different groups and organizations that would be available for undergraduate and graduate students, but also faculty, staff, and alumni as well. So having that network of either former students or faculty and staff that you can also reach out to for support in the community, that's also always a great resource. But then also at the graduate and undergraduate level as well, to make sure that all students are feeling supported on campus. And these groups and organizations can be anything from honor societies or specific major and program organizations to just fun orgs too that you can participate and volunteer in as well. With that being said, my next section would be on events. So volunteering, participating, or going to events for students. That can include things like educational seminars, talking about different issues for any kind of student that falls under the LGBTQ plus label. That also could be things like our UWM has an annual drag show that like we always have, or different schools will have like a lavender or rainbow graduation ceremony. Things like educating the community. Oftentimes that is done through the resource centers, or training for faculty and staff members. And then outside of that too, we have health services, and these are things that are really important, but students oftentimes will forget about in terms of looking to see if campuses have available. So on the physical side, making sure that there is trans-affirming care, and then on the mental health side as well, like looking for crisis counseling. And then Kate mentioned this a little bit earlier, but having housing supports. So through Pride Floors, LLCs, gender neutral housing, or all gender bathrooms. Those are all going to be really important to look out for. And then also safety, another big thing that we've talked about a few times already throughout this presentation, but looking for safety supports on campus, and then that hate and bias reporting. And then we also have education, and in this sense, I'm talking about education to faculty, staff, other students, and community members. So making sure that you have safe spaces on campus where faculty and staff members understand and can support you as a student. And then outside of that, visibility in course curriculum and programs. So in terms of your education as a student, being able to have either major, minors, or certificates in things like gender and sexuality studies, LGBTQ issues that are incorporated into already existing courses. So being able to talk about issues that relate to queer students and how that might impact different courses. And then also addressing things like heteronormative or gender normative curriculum and discussing about how that might have changed or how it's been problematic or how we can move forward from that. And then also having professors or graduate and doctoral students that are doing LGBTQ research and research efforts across campus. And then finally, digging into things like career development services or job and internship or volunteer opportunities are also great supports as well. So on the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that are specific to UWM, and then we're going to see how that kind of varies and so where some of the crossover is between our 3 campuses. So some things that are pretty unique to our campus, we have like intersectional identities, counseling, and support systems. So if you're a queer student that has other salient identities, and that could be anything from race to socioeconomic status to religion and how they interact with your queer status, like that is important to talk about. And that's something that we want to make sure that we have on campus for students that are dealing with more than just one aspect of their personality and their identity. Other things would be like our LGBTQ Veteran Center. We also have like some certificate programs, and then things like crisis counseling. So that's some of the unique things that you'll see at UWM, but across other university campuses as well.
Yeah, and I think something you might see kind of consistent across a lot of our slides is student employment, organizations, different things. And so by telling you a little bit about what each of our campuses look like, we just want to, again, reinforce that it's going to look a little bit different across campuses, but most of them are going to have some of these basic things. Within ours, some cool things that we're able to do within our Pride Center and our kind of LGBTQ community on campus is they're hosting a lot of different events and different things, especially now that we're virtual and we all have access to kind of be on the computer and different things. I was telling Scott and Mackenzie that earlier today, we actually hosted a virtual National Coming Out Day where we brought in a queer DJ from Madison and interviewed her, and it was really cool to kind of pull all of our students together in that way, even though we're virtual. So trying to create some of those connections, even though we're kind of not all remote, our students are back on campus, but not able to gather in the ways that we typically can. Like UW-Milwaukee, we do have a couple different certificates in LGBT studies, as well as a diversity leadership certificate that actually involve classes like queer pop culture and different things where you're actually getting to study different LGBTQ issues in the classroom. And again, inclusive housing, preferred names, all gender bathrooms, all of that is going to be important. But Scott did mention earlier as well that visit days can be a great resource for you as well. We do have an LGBTQ visit day coming up next Thursday, where prospective students like all of you will actually get to interact with some of our LGBTQ students, faculty, and staff on campus. So definitely can't advocate enough for resources like that, where you're actually getting to interact with and connect with some of those students and individuals on campus, especially now since we're all kind of spread out.
Okay, and then lastly, at the University of Oklahoma, again, we're going to see some similar things here. I think we've all had inclusive housing, preferred name, all gender bathrooms as access on all of our campuses, which is great. Counseling services, crisis counseling as well. We are, again, I mentioned our LGBTQ plus programs are under our Gender Inequality Center. So there is like an advisory board, a mentorship program, an ally training that they do as well. Some student organizations that kind of get into some unique, I don't want to say like needs, but we have a group called OU Outlaws, and it is for LGBTQ students within our School of Law. I just think that the Outlaw is a funny play on words. And so OU Outlaws falls under our law school. We have OSTEM, which stands for Out in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. And so that is another student organization for out students in STEM programs. So kind of another way to do some networking, major to major, but be connected to other students that are also members of the community, but studying the same thing that you're studying. So, so those are some examples of some of our student organizations. We do have a minor in LGBTQ studies that comes out of our women's and gender studies department that has a major and a minor in that area. I'm trying to think of other things. We have an alumni network as well too. So an OU LGBTQ Alumni Society, which is kind of a nice way too that OU students can be connected to other LGBTQ members of the OU alums that might not have been on campus at the same time as them, but it expands that alumni network while also expanding your connections within the community.
Awesome. And I think it's important to mention, kind of like Scott mentioned earlier, a lot of campuses are really doing a lot of the work right now to get better, where OU was at a 3.5 out of 5 on the Campus Pride Index, and now they're up to a 4 out of 5 because they're adding programs and they're doing things. We're similar, we're adding that alumni network. So some of those cool resources where you're gonna get to connect with more people on campus and in the community. But I think we'll all kind of agree that this presentation is meant for you as a student to kind of take into account as you go through your college search. So things to think about, but this doesn't have to be the full focus of you searching for colleges. Depending on kind of what you're looking for in a university, these are all going to be really important resources, but you're still going to want to find the right major, the right financial fit, and things like that. So just kind of keeping all of that in mind as we kind of wrap up. That's all that we have in terms of kind of straight content coming off the slides for you. So we really want to leave this last 15 minutes to you as students to ask any questions you may have. And yeah, just we're here to serve as resources for you. Awesome. Great question. So we just had a question coming in wondering about scholarships in terms of kind of LGBTQ specific, but we can talk a little bit more generally as well. UW-Whitewater does have one specific scholarship for LGBTQ students, but it's for our continuing students. So it's actually an alumni sponsored scholarship that anyone freshman through senior can apply for once they're on campus. And that's really going to be our only specific scholarship in terms of the LGBTQ community.
I think that is also something you'd want to have maybe a conversation with the schools that you're interested in, and your admissions counselor specifically, because it could range. And it can even be the difference in something like having that relationship with your admissions counselor and them knowing that piece of information about you. And if they are, with how universities might be structured, they might be the ones to point out scholarships that you could apply for or nominate you for scholarships that you'd be eligible for that might be for specifically underrepresented populations. And qualifying that to with them up front as you're applying would be good too, because sometimes you might not need to quote unquote come out in your overall admissions essay to the school to be considered for scholarships if they're using other pieces of information for scholarship consideration. So that's also a ask is if you're looking for scholarship opportunities, what are ways to be identified and ways in which you can be eligible for those scholarships and asking specifically university because it could range.
And on that note too, if you reach out to your admissions rep, they might be able to connect you to like the resource centers on campus. Like I know, for instance, our resource center has community-based organizations that have scholarships. So they're not through the university, but they're in the community. So you're able to get scholarships that way as well.
I would say too, looking into different community organizations like Mackenzie suggested, some of those community resources that we kind of mentioned earlier, as well as just searching for LGBTQ college scholarships. There's a ton of different free search websites that you can use that'll pull scholarships like that as well.
Also, we would be remiss not to mention your high school counselors. They are also a great resource too.
Can you talk a little bit more about student organizations and what those provide for students? Anyone want to take that? I can go, but. So we have two different student organizations on campus, but essentially I think the biggest function that some of those student organizations present is kind of a social support, right? It's getting together with a group of people who are kind of identifying within this community and getting that support, whether that's through just the meetings, doing different things. We have Impact, which is our LGBTQ and Allies organization that organizes our annual drag show. So they put on a ton of different events on campus that you're able to get involved in as well. And we do have QTPOC as well, which is an organization specifically for queer and trans people of color. And so they're able to provide a different type of support than just kind of that general LGBTQ organization.
And kind of on that note too, like you're finding and building connections, but you're also building a sense of community with students that are going to be in a similar scenario and can relate to you in a way that us or other people might not be able to. So that's always good and priceless to have as well.
I don't have much to add of what has already been said because it would just be repeating. But what other questions do y'all have? I'll definitely send them in the Q&A box so you can continue to answer these. I'll also point out that our emails are on the slide here, so please contact us if you think of anything else or write these down if you don't already have them. And that way you can get our contact information, and even if it's not something that's specifically related to our institution, but you just have follow-up questions related to this presentation, any of the three of us would be happy to help and assist. But we're still here if you have questions now.
I do want to highlight too what Kate said earlier. We're happy to help in the process, whether it's to our universities or not. We just want to help you find your fit.
We got a kudos coming in. So just want to say that we're happy to be here and help out with this. And so we're happy that we had folks attend today, and more than happy to help with a resource afterward too. But thank you all for coming and taking time out of your busy days, especially if you're like just getting out of school at 3:30 and your Zoom fatigue is, you know, very strong at the moment. We're just happy that we had some folks come participate in this. Something that we're all very passionate about, and more than happy to assist even beyond today too.
And hi, and you can also sort of shoo me away if another question comes up, but I just also wanted to say as a school counselor listening in just how much I appreciate the information that you've just given. And for folks listening, a lot of times your school counselor can be a really good resource to sort of have these conversations if you feel that that person is a safe person to speak with. And if you feel like you have that sort of relationship where you're comfortable disclosing. If for some reason you're in a position where you're not comfortable disclosing that information about yourself, you have three amazing people that you can reach out to right here, who can, and you have their contact information, and you can be assured that these are safe, supportive, and understanding people as you discuss wherever you might be in not just your college exploration, but your exploration into who you are and what you care about. One other resource around the person who asked regarding scholarships, The Point Foundation is a national organization that works with LGBTQ plus youth and provides scholarship assistance outside of some of the institutional monies you might be able to receive from specific colleges and universities. And there are colleges and universities that might have specific money targeted towards LGBTQ plus recruitment. And those are questions you can ask those admissions officers, particularly as you research different colleges and universities.
And we did have another question come in asking if there are any other websites that we can recommend as resources. So I again just want to kind of touch on that. Pride Index is a great resource for you, but not every school is going to have filled it out. Some of it isn't going to be totally up to date, right? As people transition from that 3.5 to that 4 to hopefully that 5 someday. So that, as well, while it is a good resource, I think serves as kind of a point for you to really look at what are some of the resources I should be looking for. And then honestly, I feel comfortable saying Google is a great resource to kind of start to dig out, colleges with a Pride Center, or, Wisconsin, Oklahoma colleges with LGBTQ student organizations, just starting to do some of that search for the pieces of what we talked about today that you're really looking for and are kind of checking that must have, or I'd really like that on my college campus.
And that NACAC link that we had on that one slide too, referenced to a lot of other slides, or a lot of other websites, I should say. So you can always go back when this recording is made available and get that link, or just search NACAC LGBTQ, and that would take you to that website. It should pop up towards the top of that Google search.
Also, too, if you are on a university's LGBTQ website, they oftentimes list national resources that are available. So that's also, too, if you're looking at specific universities, they have resources and websites that you can check out as well.
I'm going to add on what Mackenzie just said, might even have state or local resources as well, too. So it might have community organizations in the local college town, or statewide, or maybe nearby. The University of Oklahoma is 25 minutes from Oklahoma City. So things like that, that you might have resources as well too, that might not be right around the corner, but in the backyard.
Are there any last questions? We have about 3 minutes left. So if there's anything else you're wondering, we're good hanging out, smiling at you, laughing at ourselves, but we're definitely here. If you have questions now, feel free to drop them in that Q&A. And like was said, all three of us are more than willing and happy to chat with any of you after today to help you find resources, help you do that college search, whether or not you're interested in any of our 3 universities. We're definitely just here to help.
Okay, so thank you so much, attendees, for joining this panel discussion. Thank you too to Kate, Mackenzie, and Scott for excellent information on this topic. When you close the screen, you'll get a very quick 4-question survey. Please do take the opportunity to fill that out and provide us with valuable feedback. Please sign up for more sessions. There are more sessions going on throughout the month of October, and you can check out that schedule at www.iacac.org. And a recording of this and all sessions will also be available at www.iacac.org. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you to Scott, Kate, and Mackenzie for excellent information, and have a fantastic day.